So before we jump in, here's a quick observation that I've noticed. I don't know, maybe you feel the same thing, but have you ever felt like we have all now been conditioned for convenience? I mean, think about this, okay? We now live in a time where food is delivered hot and ready to eat to our doors in minutes, right? We are now living in a time where we can start our car before we're even in it so that the AC is nice and cool and ready to go. We are now living in a time where we have assistants, audio assistants, voice assistants in our homes that can turn the lights down because this has gotten too inconvenient, right? We have been conditioned for convenience. And so here's my fear, and here's the other thing I see, is that now even the smallest inconvenience, even the smallest problem can send us into a full-on emotional meltdown. And here's what I'm wondering, and here's what I'm scared of. If something as small as a late Amazon Prime 2-day delivery can rattle us and cause us to spiral, how are we going to respond? How are we going to live the moment that life gets truly difficult? The moment that we have to walk through a season of suffering. How are we going to respond? Will we stand firm? And so here's the question I want us to explore today is when life gets hard, will you stand firm? And we're going to continue in Paul's first letter to the Thessalonians. We're going to be in chapter 3, but before we jump into that, I want to give you a little bit of backstory. Because here's the thing about Paul. He did not just write random letters to churches that he knew nothing about. So this letter to the Thessalonians is because Paul had a personal relationship with these people. For him, it was deeply personal. He met these people. He saw their faces. He knew their names, and he would pray with these people. But the problem is that his time in Thessalonica got cut short. And it got cut short because it was working. God was moving. Lives were being changed. The church was popping. And it wasn't just with the Jews. Greeks were becoming part of this church. Men and women were becoming part of this church. Influential people in the community were being part of the church. Successful business leaders in the community were having their lives changed at this church. And because of it, naturally, the old Jewish leaders got jealous. And so what do? What any normal, rational adult does, they start a riot. And so here's what they were doing. They were spreading this word. It wasn't necessarily a lie. It is true. But they were telling people, hey, Paul is telling everyone that there is another king that they should bow down to other than Caesar. He is telling everyone they should follow and worship King Jesus. So because of that, what ended up happening is this house that Paul was staying in with his friend Jason, the house is ransacked, but Paul's not there. And so they collect all of his friends, they bring him into captivity, and they hold him hostage until Paul agrees to leave. Paul didn't want to, but he had to for his safety and for theirs. And so this brand new church has their pastor ripped away. And we see that their life continues to get more and more difficult, even post-Paul, because the same guys that were going after Paul continued to go after them and make life difficult. And we see that this breaks Paul's heart. In 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, Paul says that he has an intense longing to see them again. But each time he's tried to come back to them, Satan keeps blocking his way. So now, Paul is left wondering, How are my friends in Thessalonica or in Thessalonica? How are my friends, the Thessalonians? Are they still following Jesus? Are they still standing? Or has the pain been too much? Because Paul knows what we all know. Trials can deepen our faith or destroy it. And so he wants to make sure that the Thessalonian church is standing firm even when the circumstances are difficult. And that is what I want for us today as well. I want to make sure that we are people who will stand firm even when life gets hard. And so with that, let's read 1 Thessalonians chapter 3, starting in verse 1. This is what Paul writes. He says, "So when we could stand it no longer, we thought it best to be left by ourselves in Athens. We sent Timothy, who was our brother and co-worker in God's service in spreading the gospel of Christ, to strengthen and encourage you in your faith." So what Paul is saying is we can't come back. We've tried, and so we've determined we're going to stay in Athens, and we're going to send Timothy to you in our place so that no one would be unsettled by these trials. For you know quite well that we are destined for them. In fact, when we were with you, we kept telling you that we would be persecuted. And it turned out that way, as you well know. And so what Paul is saying is like, hey, right here, go and make it super clear, suffering is part of the deal. Suffering is not that thing that is hidden away in the fine print with an asterisk. Like we know from the beginning, it's right there in the bold. You and I are going to walk through some tough times. We are going to suffer. I mean, Jesus said it this way. Jesus said, "I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. Because in this world you will have trouble." Like that's a promise. And it's funny because Jesus says, "I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace." But it seems like to me, if Jesus were to tell me, "Hey, Matt, life's gonna stink for such a long time. It's gonna be hard. You're gonna face battles. You're gonna go through struggles," it would do the opposite than give me peace, right? But Jesus says, no. You need to be aware so that you can have peace. And then Peter says it this way. Peter says, "Do not be surprised at the fiery ordeal." Do not be surprised when you go through hard times. Do not be surprised when it seems like you're in the middle of a dumpster fire. Because as though something strange were happening to you. Because he says, these things are not strange. These hard times, these painful moments are normal. They're to be expected. And that's why Paul is just saying, guys, don't be surprised by this. Make sure to stand firm when you face trials. And then Paul continues with this in verse 5. He says, "For this reason, when I could stand it no longer, I sent to find out about your faith, because I was afraid that in some way the tempter had tempted you and that our labors might have been in vain." So here's what we know and what we see time and time again. That where God is at work, so is the enemy. Right? I mean, it makes sense because God was moving powerfully in the Thessalonian church. Lives were being changed. God is at work. And so it makes sense that we should expect that so is Satan. Satan's coming behind and trying to foil all of God's plans and destroy what God is up to. And here's what I've also learned in life, is that Satan doesn't waste his time where there isn't a threat. Where God is working, Satan is scheming. It was true with Jesus. The moment that Jesus is baptized and the Holy Spirit descends, we have this powerful moment, but then immediately after that, Satan is face to face with Jesus in the wilderness. We see this with Paul. Every time that a church started to thrive under Paul's leadership, pain and suffering and trials and persecution wasn't far behind. It's true for us. Maybe you've even felt this, that you do something for the first time, like step up to serve, or you take this big step of obedience. You're going where God's calling you to go. Or maybe you start praying these bold prayers, and then suddenly, resistance, pushback, and temptation follows. It's almost as if the bigger the opportunity, the greater the opposition. And so if you've had this big success in your life, if you've had this massive spiritual victory, or you've taken a next step towards Christ, and then you're immediately hit with trials and temptation and pain and suffering, that's not a coincidence. Satan is a very real threat. Where God is at work, so is the enemy. Now, Paul here describes Satan as the tempter. But in other places throughout Scripture, we see Satan described like this. We see that he is our adversary. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to play with. No, devour. Then we see this in John 10:10. What's his mission? What's his point? He comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. And then we see this, that when Satan speaks, when he lies, he speaks his native language. Like his primary language is lying, and truth is somewhere in the distance. For he is a liar. Not only is he a liar, but he is the father of lies. And so what is Satan's goal? What is the tempter's goal? Is to destroy and devour your faith. But here's the thing. The tempter's playbook hasn't changed for thousands of years. His goal is to distort the truth, to discourage you with pain, and to distract you with comfort. And don't miss this. He loves to use our times of suffering. He loves to use our trials to speak lies to us. Because if he can take something that was meant to strengthen us and instead use it to shake us, he wins. That's one of his favorite plays in the book. It's when we're going through these hard times and we're the most vulnerable, you start to feel Satan whisper these questions and these doubts in your minds like, hey, Matt, maybe you're going through this because God's mad at you. Did you do anything to upset God? What did you do wrong here? Maybe he's punishing you. Maybe you don't have enough faith. Maybe you're not good enough. Maybe you're not worthy of good things. And listen, Satan doesn't have to make you hate God to win the battle. He doesn't even have to make you walk away from your faith. All he has to do is rattle you and keep you from standing firm. And that's why Paul's saying, guys, take this seriously. Because if you walk through life naive to the fact that you have an enemy, you are going to be blindsided. So be on guard. And at the same time, though, I feel like there's this awkward balance that we have to take. Because we need to be aware that Satan is a thing and he's coming after us, right? That's a real thing for us. But we also don't need to give him more credit than he deserves, right? Because he's real, yes. He's active, yes. But at the same time, he's already been defeated, right? And so while he may win the battle, we know he's lost the war. And so if there is this danger that if we read Satan into everything, if we read Satan into every bad hair day, in every flat tire, and every time that a waiter spills salsa, sour cream, and shredded cheese down the back of your pants, oddly specific, but it happened to me this past week. But if we read Satan into everything, then you'll end up living paralyzed by fear. And guess what? When that happens, Satan still gets a W. Because sometimes he doesn't have to destroy you. He just has to distract you. Sometimes he doesn't need you to fall into sin. He he just freezes you in fear. And either way, he keeps you from moving forward. And that's why Paul's emphasis is, guys, be ready. Don't obsess. Don't freeze. Stand firm. Because our confidence does not come from avoiding what the tempter might be doing to us. It is found in what Jesus has already done for us. And that is our anchor. And that is our hope when tough times come, so that we can stand firm. So here's what I want to do for the rest of our time together. I want to go through these different lies that the tempter likes to speak. These different lies that the tempter uses to twist our trials. These different lies that he uses to turn our pain into paralysis. This is not a comprehensive list, but I think these are some of the biggest ones that we go through. And here's the first one. That when we go through hard times, he likes to whisper, you're stuck here forever. Things are never going to change. Things are never going to get better for you. This will never end. And here's the thing. Like, we know this isn't true. But when we are in the middle of a very difficult season of life, it just feels true, right? I mean, it just feels hard. But pain and trials, they are a part of our life, and that is not going to change on this side of eternity. But what can change is our perspective and how we see them. Because Paul is kind of a weird dude when it comes to suffering. Like, he has this wild perspective. He's got this insane ability to take inconvenience and turn it into opportunity. I was listening to a podcast that reminded me of this former Navy SEAL, Jocko Willink. And he talks about when something would go wrong, his team would come to him and say, hey, boss, we have a problem. And his response was the same every single time. And it's super short. It's just one word. His response is, good. Oh, wait, we didn't get the gear you needed? Good. So now you get to learn how to work with less. Oh, the mission changed last minute? Good. Now you get to learn how to adapt. And honestly, that's just like Paul, right? I mean, think about it. Paul's in prison, and what does he say? Oh, you want to set me free? Good. Because to live is Christ. Oh, you want to execute me? Good. To die is gain. I mean, what do you do with a guy like that? In Thessalonica, Paul gets booted out sooner than he wanted. And what did he say? Good. I'm going to send a letter through Timothy. Which, by the way, that letter, spoiler alert, has been used for over 2,000 years to encourage and teach the global church. Right? Setbacks aren't stop signs. They're invitations to see new ways forward. Stuck in a traffic jam on the way to work? Good. Now you have time to pray, to breathe, or get caught up on that podcast. You didn't get the job you wanted? Good. Now you have time to prepare for the job that you didn't see coming. Every time that Paul hit a wall, he changed his perspective and he found another lane. He wasn't stuck because his perspective set him free far before his circumstances ever did. And I think Paul would remind us today that when your plans change, God's mission hasn't. So don't let disruptions derail you. Let them direct you. Stand firm. All right, here's lie number 2. If life is hard, God must be punishing you. Honestly, how many times have we been through hard times and we start asking ourselves, what did I do to bring this on myself? God must be mad at me, right? We've all thought that. But Jesus speaks against that lie very early on. In John chapter 9, his disciples come across this young man who was blind. And his disciples say, hey, Jesus, who sinned? This guy or his parents? What they're saying is, hey, Jesus, why is this guy blind? Is it his fault or his parents? Did they sin or did his parents? Are you punishing him because of him? And it's something he did or something his parents did? And Jesus is like, no, neither. No, this happened so that the works of God may be displayed. This happened because it's a natural part of living in a fallen and broken world. This is not punishment. This is not proof that God is standing against him. It's the stage for God's glory to show up. Now, don't get me wrong. Sometimes life is really, really hard. And it's really, really hard because of our own choices. But sometimes the mess in our life isn't punishment from God or schemes of Satan. It's just our own fault. And here's the thing. There is a big difference between punishment and consequences. Punishment says, you broke the law, now you pay the price. Where consequences say, you made a choice, now you deal with the results. Consequences are not the same as God's punishment. Now, God may not always rescue you out of your consequences, but it does not mean that God has turned on you because of them. So sometimes you're just standing in a hole because you dug it for yourself. Staying up until 3 a.m. binging Netflix and then getting to work miserable, exhausted, and having a terrible day is not God's fault. It's yours. Buying the car that you can't afford and now you're drowning in car payments. God is not punishing you. Satan's not even scheming against you. That's just your poor decision making. We can't give credit to God for punishing you. We can't always give credit to Satan either, because sometimes the one attacking you is you. So hear me. Hard things in life is not God punishing you. Why? Because Jesus already paid the price of that punishment. But God does sometimes use the hard things in our life. He does sometimes use the consequences of our decisions to discipline and shape us, because there is a difference. Punishment is payback. Discipline is molding for growth. And Hebrews 12 says that the Lord disciplines those he loves. Going through hard times knocks off hard edges. So when life gets hard, it is not proof that God has turned against you. It's not punishment, but it is proof that God's not done growing and shaping you into the man or woman that he wants you to become. Here's the third lie. This suffering has no purpose. This suffering is random. It's pointless. These trials are meaningless. And let's be honest, we have been caught up in that. But here's the thing. Just because you don't know what the purpose is, doesn't mean there isn't one. Because here's the thing. God sees the beginning from the end. He is omnipotent and omniscient. So he's all-powerful, all-knowing. You and I, we are living in a short little sliver of it. We do not have the perspective, the knowledge, or the power that God does. Here's what's funny, though. That doesn't stop us from acting like we do. We assign reasons to pain like we're experts, but we're not. It's like my brother-in-law, Alex. He's a professional fighter. I've talked about him before. That's literally his job, to train, study, and strategize new ways to win. And here's what's funny to me about that, because he's really, really good at it. But every single time, he's always got these people who have never been in a fight before, unless you count like arguing over guacamole being extra at Chipotle. Give him advice on how he should fight better the next time. So, oh man, you should have got him in a chokehold that time. Or what you really should have done is thrown that left jab. And it's like, sir, the only thing you've ever thrown is your back out getting off the couch, okay? And so here's my point. If you've never been in the ring, don't try to be an expert. If you've never been God, don't try to explain him, okay? But God in his loving kindness towards us does give us a purpose for our pain. And he does it through James. James in chapter 1 in his book, James, says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. And here's what's interesting. Like, I think a lot of us kind of hate this verse. We're like, oh, okay, whatever, right? Because it's hard. When we're thinking through life and our spirituality and our emotional life and our spiritual life, this is hard. But we get this when it comes to our physical life, don't we? Because you and I, we will literally pay for pain. We pay for gym memberships. We pay for coaches and trainers. And our hope is that they will push us beyond what is comfortable so that we can experience growth in pain, because we know that that is the only way for us to get stronger. But here's what we also know about our physical lives. The more weight that we can push through means the more weight that we can lift later, right? There is growth in that. And that is why Pastor Mike always says, the more that you go through, the more you can get through. See, when we're training, at first, those 20-pound dumbbells, they may seem really, really heavy, right? You're trying to curl them and your arms are shaking, and it's so hard, and you start questioning every life decision and praying that Jesus would come back. And this is only after rep number 3, right? But if you stick with it, what happens? That same 20-pound dumbbell, it doesn't feel as heavy anymore. And it's not because the weight changed. It's because you have. You have gotten stronger. And I think sometimes when we are going through hard times, it's God adding more weight to the bar. And it's not that you signed up for it, but the purpose in doing it is that so that you can lift it, because the more that you can lift means the more you can lift later. The more that you go through means the more that you can get through. So that the same problem that would have crushed you 5 years ago, you are able to go through it again, but carry it with strength and dignity and grace. It doesn't crush you like it used to. And here's the other funny thing about a really good workout. Sometimes you'll feel that pain immediately, right? You try to sit down all day and your thighs are on fire, right? But what happens? We wear that pain like a badge of honor because pain is proof of progress. And the same is true when it comes to our faith, that every trial, every storm, every hardship is just a little bit more weight on the bar. And it means that you are gaining and earning a little bit more spiritual grit and spiritual strength. Here's lie number 4. Your pain means that God has abandoned you. Satan loves this one. That this suffering, it's proof that God's walked away from you. Because if he really loved you, you wouldn't be going through any of this. And let's be honest, when life really hurts, it is so easy to start questioning, God, why don't you care for me? Where are you right now? Why do I feel alone? And I think about this moment where Jesus is at the Sea of Galilee and he's telling his disciples, hey, let's go across the sea. Let's go through to the other side. He invites them to go. He says, let's go together. And he doesn't give them a weather report. He doesn't give them a warning. And maybe you guys remember this story if you've grown up in church for a little while, right? And as soon as they get on the water, there is a sudden, violent storm that the disciples had no idea was coming. 1 minute, the waters are calm. The next minute, it's absolute chaos. So much so, the storm was so violent that the disciples thought they were going to drown. But here's what I wonder. Again, we know how the story plays out. They get to the other side. But I wonder, what I would love to see is their face. I wonder, Jesus says, let's go through this. Let's go through the sea. Let's get to the other side. But I want to see their face the moment they realized the storm was coming. What was their reaction the moment they felt these strong winds? How long was it before they started nudging each other and go, why would Jesus do this? Why is Jesus making us go through this storm? What was Jesus thinking? And yet, he is with them right there in the boat. And yes, he might have been taking a cat nap and sleeping. But he was with them. They're panicking, but Jesus is present. They are in this together. And that's the point. Peace doesn't come from calmer seas. It comes from a present Savior. And maybe you've wondered, if God loves me, then why not just stop the storm from happening? Because God's greatest gift isn't calmer seas. It's not an easier life. It's his presence with you. Peace does not come from a storm that disappears. It comes from knowing that you're not alone in it. And when we go through these storms, just think about how close Jesus is to you. This is what we see in Psalms, that the Lord is close to the brokenhearted, and he saves those who are crushed in spirit. And another part in Psalms, it says this, that you, Jesus, you, God, keep track of all my sorrows. You've collected all my tears in your bottle. You've recorded each one in your book. Can you imagine that for a moment? That every tear that you have ever cried has been collected. It's been counted. It's been remembered. So when you cry out, God, where are you? His response to you is, I am closer to you than you can even imagine. I am with you, but not only am I with you, I am weeping with you, and I am collecting every single one of your tears. I am counting every single one of your tears. I am keeping track of every single one of your trials. And the same Spirit of God every single day is saying what Jesus said to his disciples. Let's go to the other side. Let's go to the other side of your grief. Let's go through the other side of your loss. Let's go through the other side of the diagnosis that you were not expecting. Let's go through the other side of the betrayal that you didn't deserve. Let's go through the other side of the storm that you weren't expecting. Let's go through together. Do not buy into the lie that God has abandoned you. You can stand firm, not because the storm is calmer, but because Jesus is present. And I know some of you are walking through hard things right now. You are going through pain and suffering and trials and temptation right now. And my encouragement for you is you can do hard things. You can stand firm. And it's not because you're strong enough, but it's because Jesus is. And he is with you. And here's the really cool part that Paul writes in 1 Thessalonians 3. In verse 7, he says, therefore, brothers and sisters, in all of our distress and persecution, we were encouraged about you because of your faith. For now we really live since you are standing firm in the Lord. How can we thank God enough for you in return for the joy we have in the presence of God because of you? What Paul is saying is that their faith gave him fuel, that their perseverance became his encouragement, because that's what happens when you're part of the family of God. We don't just stand firm for ourselves. We stand firm for each other because whether or not you realize it, someone is watching. Your kids are watching. Your friends are watching. Your coworkers are watching. Your neighbors who are trying to determine whether or not Jesus is worth it is watching. And when they can see you hold on to your faith in adversity, it just might give them the courage to do the same. So do not run from the hard stuff. Stand firm in it, because there is a testimony on the other side of your perseverance, and you never know how you standing firm in that moment may be the exact thing that someone else needed to take their next steps towards Christ.